This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 181 of the Dressage Radio Show on the Horse Radio Network, brought to you by Equestrian Collections for all your Christmas shopping needs.
This is Reese Koffler Stanfield from Georgetown, Kentucky.
And this is Philip Parks from Fergus, Ontario, and you're listening to the Dressage Radio Show with our producer, Glenn.
Well, hi, guys. I really want to hear about your weekend. You were away together, and I got some pictures, none of which we can talk about on the air. But
It's not that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Whoa, Glenn, easy.
But I do want to talk to you about that. But first, let's discuss this FEI thing, because it's hit the fan here for the last couple of days, and maybe we can fill people in on what the new rule actually said and what they really meant, because obviously there was a lack of communication on this one from the FEI. So what happened was I heard from the American Driving Society when we were recording the driving show that there's this new rule come down by the FEI that has everybody in a Twitter. And what the rule basically said was that if you compete at the FEI level, and the way it read is if you compete at the FEI level and then go out and compete at an unrecognized show, you were going to be barred from the FEI level for 6 months. And that was rider, horse, or judge, any judge that judged a show like that. That's the way it originally said. The drivers were kind of upset because they only have a few FEI shows here in the United States, and the rest of them are unrecognized, So they were concerned that if I go out and compete at the one FEI show, I can't do anything else all year. And then the eventers got involved, and I contacted Reese. I contacted you to see what you could find out. And apparently this is not what the FEI meant. Is that what's coming out now?
Yeah, that's what's coming out. So this was from USEF. The new rule does not apply to any competitions that could never be considered as international. So small shows, society shows, pleasure shows, etc., do not come under this new rule. If a show is run as a national show, either through NF, the NF, which is the National Federation, for us that's USEF, and for Philip that's Canadian Dressage, or Dressage Canada.
Dressage Canada,
through an organization that is recognized by the NF only, it does not apply. However, if the OC, which is the organizers, organize a full international show in one of the existing FEI disciplines with invited international riders and does so outside the NF, and so is not the FEI calendar, it is not supported by the NF, the rules will be applied by the FEI, the suspensions could be invoked. The FEI general rules have always confirmed that the FEI is the recognition of the International Federation of Equestrian International Events for its disciplines and its managers. The general rules confirm that the show with more than 15 international riders from more than 4 nations must run as an FEI event or under the national federations concerned.
So dressage-wise, that doesn't really apply, does it, Reese? I mean, I don't think there's any large international shows that wouldn't be FEI or under our own federations. So that kind of glazed over my head. I didn't understand that this would apply to the other FEI disciplines, but I guess it kind of was confusing for some.
Yeah, the way it read, it was just poorly written. It was a poorly written rule that should have been vetted a little bit more before it went in the rule book. Exactly. And I can see why there was concern, especially when you talk about the eventers, they're always competing horses at lower levels and in unrecognized local events. And that's where the concern was, is I can't do that anymore. I've lost 3/4 of my business.
Sure.
And, I can understand why it kind of hit the fan over the last couple of days. And it would have affected people like you, Reese. You compete in unrecognized local events as well.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a little while longer, a little while in the show. We're going to talk about to show or not to show. That is the question. But exactly. And that's why it seemed fishy, but this really applies. I guess they were having some issues with some jumper competitions. I think that's where it really came into play. But, from USEF and in my representatives that I talked to there, there's really not anything in dressage that you need to worry about. So we're all set. It just, like you said, Glenn, poorly written, would have affected a ton of people. Myself, there was a jumper rider that jumps my horse. He was here today. It would have affected him. So, but that's not how it's going to be. And it's fine. There's really nothing in dressage that's going to affect. So It's okay.
Yep. No need to worry.
No need to worry.
We're all good.
No panic.
Exactly. No panic, everybody. Relax. It's all good.
So what is coming up on today's show, Reese?
So we have Nancy Hintz. We and Philip and I are going to talk about when is a good time to show, when is it a good time to stay at home and train, what to do with young horses. And then we also have one of our Philip's fellow Canadians, Ron King, is going to come on and talk about some winter weather riding tips. So a great show today.
For those of us in the north, and he is really quite. I mean, he's even more north than me. So,
does he live
so that's
in an
why we
igloo
have.
or Philip?
I know, is that possible?
An igloo?
I think it's pretty close. Yeah.
Is the indoor covered in snow blocks?
Sure.
It's this big arch.
Yeah, well, it can get that way, kind of. I think it probably will seem that way soon, but
poor
but
Philip. He's going to be the only one up north soon. And all our listeners, we will be thinking about you.
He'll be up there representing Canada and
and I'm gonna talk to you guys about it every single week because it really affects me, and it affects all of us up here that stay up north. So I think it's very important that you guys hear about it.
Well, I will tell you, it's been very cold here actually this week, and it's been in the 20s when I ride. And I will tell you, winter weather riding is hard. By the time I took blankets off for the 30th time of the day, blankets on, coolers off, oh boy, I was over it this week. So I anybody more north than here, I feel for you for sure.
Well, before we get into all of that, we have the second part in our Holiday Helmet series, and this is done in cooperation with Charles Owen and Riders for Helmets and the Horse Radio Network as we present this special holiday series called Giving the Gift of Safety, Purchasing a Helmet for Your Loved One at Christmas. And today we talk to a rider who used her helmet for what it was intended, and it actually saved her life. So we're going to hear about that in just a minute. We actually got some good feedback, too, on our Facebook page about this series. So we hope that you enjoy it. We'll be right back. Glenn the Geek here, founder of the Horse Radio Network. We are excited to bring you a special holiday helmet mini-series, Giving the Gift of Safety, Purchasing a Helmet for Your Loved Ones at Christmas. Today, we bring you the first of some amazing stories of how helmets have affected people's lives. With us are Lindsay White, founder of RidersForHelmets.com, and Deborah Furphy sharing her story. This series is sponsored by Charles Owen. When Charles Owen himself founded the company in 1911, his mission was to make products for a safer world. The incorporation of the latest technology in protection, fit, and ventilation allows you to focus on riding in the knowledge that your Charles Owen helmet will take the very best care of you. Safety, comfort, fit, all wrapped up in a helmet that is the epitome of style in each discipline. Why wait any longer? Nothing says you care more than the gift of a Charles Owen helmet for the holidays. There's a trained helmet fitter waiting in your local tack store, or you can find Charles Owen helmets at any of your favorite online tack outlets. Give the gift of safety and style this Christmas with Charles Owen. And now Lindsay White, founder of RidersForHelmets.com, and Deborah Furphy sharing her story. Well, I want to thank you both, Deb and Lindsay, for joining us today. Of course, Deb is here to tell us our first story in this series, and Lindsay is here from Riders for Helmets, going to be talking a little bit about that in just a few minutes. But I want to start with you, Deb. Lindsay said you've got to talk to Deb. She has an amazing story of recovery to talk about, and what happened to you. So let's go back in time a little bit and tell us what happened.
Okay. Well, I have to say first and foremost that my helmet saved my life. My doctors told me I wouldn't walk again. They told me a lot of horrible, horrible things. So let's get into the accident and why that happened and why I was actually wearing the approved type of helmet at that time. I had just turned 18 on December 3rd, 1991. I was among the top in my region and nationally ranked in junior hunters, large and small, and equitation, large hunter pony. And then on December 5th, a horse I was schooling for a client refused the jumps that we were working on. So, like most riders, I applied the crop twice, told him, we're not going to deal with this nonsense. And we circled back. And instead of, refusing it, he refused, and he reared in such a smooth movement that he lost his balance and he went over backwards, and I was not able to get free. And he'd landed on top of me, and he fractured in my back the L3, L4, L5, S1, S2, and my coccyx.
Oh, my.
So,
that's a serious back break there.
Yeah, that was not a good thing. And 20 years ago, we didn't know what we know now. So there wasn't much they could do other than put me on steroids. But there was major spinal cord compression because of that injury. And he bloodied my nose each time he rolled to try and get up. I'm just so grateful he didn't break it, because that was like the only thing that was not broken at that point.
And you were wearing a helmet then?
I was wearing a helmet. He blacked both my eyes. My cheeks it looked like I had been, sandpapered down. He split my lips and broke a front tooth. I've had a spinal fusion, nerve blocks. I've been paralyzed 3 times. But I had a dorsal column stimulator implanted to kill the pain, so I'm up and walking. And this is stuff we didn't have 20 years ago. I had a severe concussion. But the whole thing is, I was wearing an approved helmet that day, and I usually never wore one. I figured it was a green horse, so why take the chance? And usually I just wear, those nice little decorative fox hunting caps that everybody used to wear with the little elastic chin strap you could cut off.
That are pretty much useless, yeah.
Yeah, they're totally useless. But I was so stupid and so vain when I schooled horses that I thought, oh, this makes me look like everybody else that's a professional. Look at me. Look at how good I look. And, if I had been wearing that instead of the helmet that they made me wear as a junior rider in competition, I would have had my skull crushed in. You can see, I still have the helmet, and you can see where his hoof hit it when he was getting up. You can see the dents in the top. You can see the cracks inside. You can see where it was, structurally compromised. And it's just one of those things where, why did I have that thought? I was so incredibly lucky.
And you told Lindsay this, and you said in your email to me that you've now had a new determination to get back into tech again after all this time.
Yeah, I have. And it's all because of Courtney King Dye. If it wasn't for reading her blog and her story and seeing that she has pretty much the same kind of injuries and weaknesses and problems that I do physically, I would never have had the courage to tell my husband, hey, I want to do this again. It was something I had always dreamed of, but it wasn't something I thought I could do. And a friend of mine turned me on to Courtney's blog last year, and I'm not ashamed to admit that I cried when I read it because it was so reminiscent and so familiar of my own experience. On November 17th, my husband and I are going to a local trail riding establishment, and we are both going on a nice trail ride. And
in a new helmet, I hope.
Yes, in a brand new helmet, actually.
You have your brand new one because you're going to be riding again.
Yeah, and I hope that I'll be able to keep it up. But even if I can't, I know that I tried. I know that I've done my best. I know that I have battled my demons and won.
Lindsay, let's bring you into this conversation. Of course, you're with Riders for Helmets, and you're the one that really has, in my opinion, and I'm going to say this and embarrass Lindsay right now, it really has changed the face of helmet wearing around the world, and really has brought it to light, and really has gotten regulations changed, around the world. So, Lindsay, congratulations on all you have done. Tell us what's going on currently. You've been on a guest on our shows a number of times. Tell us what's going on currently with Riders for Helmets.
Oh, well, thank you, Glenn. You're too kind. And I think we should definitely give a shout-out to Chad, who works on me with Riders for Helmets as well, because I certainly don't want to downplay all of the work that he does on the campaign. But, yeah, some pretty exciting things. Riders for Helmets celebrated 2 years in April this year of being basically around educating equestrians on helmet wearing. We hosted the third International Helmet Awareness Day this year that had over 500 retailers around the globe participate, which was absolutely outstanding. We hosted earlier in the year the third Riders to Helmet Safety Symposium, and we've got number 4 in the works right now, so we're going to be announcing that in the near future. We were recently awarded the Certified Horsemanship Association Partnership and Safety Award for 2012, which was a massive honor for us.
Well, congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was really cool of them to kind of recognize our efforts in educating equestrians. The Riders for Helmets blog is getting over 25,000 unique visitors a month now from over 40 countries globally, which again is just amazing that so many people read that blog and kind of tune in and read everybody's stories. And I have to say, Deborah, that it's stories like yours that have the absolute most impact, because if just one person reads your story and thinks, my gosh, I do need to protect my head, I'm going to go buy a helmet for the first time in my life, or I'm going to go change my old helmet that's 15 years old, and go buy a new one, then, you as an individual have directly contributed to probably saving somebody's life or potentially saving somebody's life. So it's your stories, everybody else's stories, the wonderful followers of the campaign, over 10,000 people following the campaign on Facebook now, all sharing the stories. It's just amazing. It's just continuing to grow, and I hope it keeps going, and I hope more and more people kind of follow the campaign, spread the word, and hopefully we get more helmets on people's heads.
What's the website, Lindsay?
Riders with an S, the number 4, and then helmets with an S.com. And, want to give a big shout out to Charles Owen as well, because I know they're involved in this helmet educational series with you, Glenn, and they've been incredibly supportive of the Riders for Helmets campaign since the beginning.
I know they have been part of it. I appreciate from the Horse Radio Network that you for Riders for Helmets and Charles Owens are involved, and everybody else that's contributing to this series. Thank you so much, Deb. I wish you the best of luck. We're going to have to check in with you and see how you do on your trail ride. You'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. I've asked for an oh crap strap, which is one of
I still use those. What are you talking about? Well, between that and the helmet, I think you're going to be just fine. So good luck, and we'll be thinking about you.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure, and I hope somebody takes away from this that, you're not invincible even when you're young and you're riding. You need that helmet. Life is hard. Your brain is soft. Protect it.
Thank you to Riders for Helmets for everything they do for helmet awareness and safety. You can visit them at riders4helmets.com. And thank you to Charles Owen. You can visit them at charlesowen.co.uk. And you can hear all the shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com. Talk to you again next week.
I'm pleased to have Nancy Hinz on the show this evening. She is from Texas and is the owner of Yellow Rose Dressage. Nancy, thanks so much for coming on the Dressage Radio Show this evening.
Oh, you're welcome.
So Philip and I think this is going to be a great topic for us to discuss tonight, but the question is, when is it time to show? When is it time not to show? So can you get us started on that discussion?
Okay. Well, the time to show would be when your basics are well confirmed at home. It may be a little different when you're talking about a young horse or a more advanced horse. But for a young horse, you want your walk, trot, and canter, and good steady contact and obedient transitions working very well at home, for the basic reason of being safe at the horse show. So you can steer and stay out of people's way and keep yourself safe. And also, when all those basics are intact, then you're going to be better able to give your horse confidence in the show ring. And so you'd have, for long term, a much more comfortable horse in the show ring and less spooking, hopefully. Another good reason to show would be to use the shows as a test of your training program. So, if you think everything's working well at home, then you go to the show and the judges can tell you if it's working or not.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different situations and scenarios. I mean, when you're talking with an experienced rider with a young horse or an inexperienced rider with an older horse, that's a totally different question. Is it time to show? I think, the the combination has to be confident in the work that they're doing, confident with the test, to have ridden the test quite a bit at home, to have a really good idea about, what is where's the horse in the training, and is it time to go out to a competition?
Right. And a good example I have of that is I had, one year I had two junior riders that were both trying to make our regional team for NHAYRC. And one of them had shown quite a bit and had shown through second and third level, but her horse had just started to learn flying changes. And so for her program, I recommended that in the early part of the year, rather than going right into the young rider qualifiers, that she do some third level tests so that she and her horse could get confident doing the changes in the show ring. And then I had another junior who didn't have as much show experience, but the horse he was on was a professor and knew how to do everything. So for that student, I had him go ahead and get into the junior classes so he could really work through how to ride those junior tests. So, that the perspective was a little different for the different combinations, like you were saying.
I've had that same thing happen. I've had, two young riders, and it happened to be her last year. And this is a tough one. This was a hard one as a trainer that I really had to think about and decide because, it's a lot of money to try out for the young riders. But this was a kid that really, I thought this is her last year. The horse, it was her first pre-St. George when she went into the test. And it was hard. She had a hard season. She'd be able to go next year. It would have been a totally different season. But in her case, that was it. This was the last year. She was going to go. She's going to graduate college, get a job. And it was a good experience. She didn't make the team. And she had some good rides and some not so good rides. But I think it's good too sometimes that if you have that question, you don't want to look back. Very rarely do you have, you have to do it this year or not. But sometimes, as we know, horses get older and it's good to at least go out and try and have that expectation that, maybe it's not going to work, but it's a good thing that you at least got out there and tried it. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, I think it's really important to have that conversation with your student or client, whether you're going to go out to show the horse or, the combination is going to show it, to say, these are our expectations. And if we achieve this or this, it's a success. And if not, then we just can keep going at it, or we can change the plan later. Right. But I think everybody has to have an idea about what is the goal of going to the show and what successes you're going to have. And it's not always about winning a class.
Right. Like with my first student, our goal was develop the horse's confidence with the lead changes in the show ring. Everything else was already there, so I knew once the two of them got those signals straight, then riding the junior test wouldn't be a problem. And she actually did quite well in her junior test and made the team that year. And then my other student, who it was just his first year doing that third level work, he had only previously shown training level, so with him, it was really a practice year anyway. We didn't expect that he would make the team his first year, moving up so quickly. And so he's the one I had go right into the junior test because he needed to learn those patterns, and the horse already knew everything. And he did not end up making the team that year, but then he made it the following year on a different horse. So you're right, it depends on the needs of the rider and the horse, whether to show or not to show, or which to do qualifiers or just do open classes. And it is important to have that conversation and have an individual plan for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we're lucky here in Lexington. We have a nice schooling show circuit. And we're just coming up on that schooling show circuit now. It starts, actually, the first show is this weekend. There's one in November. There's one in December. There's one in February and March and one in April. and they're at the horse park. It's great footing. And we use those a lot. We use them to help with goals in the winter. I think for the riders that don't go to Florida, that's a great kind of way to keep you on track. And, they're quite inexpensive. So you can sort of move up a level or see where you need to be. We have lots of horses that, had a little break after regionals and they're going to go this coming weekend. And we found that to be a really helpful thing as you go through the winter. It's also a great place to take young horses that, again, maybe you don't want to invest a lot of money into their training. But that's been a really, really good thing. So, Philip, what do you think?
Here in Canada, we have 3 separate show circuits. They're organized gold, silver, bronze. And so the bronze circuit is just kind of a level above schooling where we have recognized judges and, all the rules of Equine Canada apply. All the rules of Dressage Canada apply. And that's a great circuit for a lot of different combinations, people just getting into it, or, different young horses. It's its own circuit. Then we have the silver circuit, and then we have a gold circuit, which is a lot more for professionals or really, really nice professional horses as well. And so there's a lot of options there. And that's a totally different discussion that I have with my clients and students is, what circuit is right for you? How much money do you want to spend? I mean, at gold, the shows are 3 days long. At the bronze level, they're a day, and silver can be one or 2 days. So there's all different places where people fit, and you got to, make the decision on where everybody goes and what's going to be the best thing for having a successful show experience for each one of these horse rider combinations.
Right, so and another good option is if you have a young horse or a nervous horse, taking them to the horse show, but just schooling on the showground. That's another option as well, or another question of whether to show or not to show. You can go to the show, but not have the pressure of doing a test, and that way they get exposed to the environment and gain confidence that way.
Yeah, I love that. I do that a lot. I did that this year with my young horse. I just said to myself, and I made it a pact, that every horse show, every time the trailer left, he was in it. And, he had to spend the night at the horse show. And, the first horse show is a recognized show, but he went and he screamed the whole time, and I rode him the last day. He was just kind of terrible, but as the season went on, now he has been a much different guy. So that's been good. So Nancy and Philip, I have a question for you. What do you do when your student insists on showing, let's say moving up a level, and you as the trainer don't feel like they're ready? What do you do?
You mean if you can't convince them to stay where they are for a little longer?
Correct. If they want to go to the horse show, they say, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to show
provided
a level
it's
higher.
A safe situation and their horse behaves well at the shows. Sometimes I would just let them go do it, and then the judges will sort them out. Sometimes it's good to have the backup from the judges, because when you're working with your student every day and they hear you telling them the same thing over and over, sometimes it doesn't always sink in. But like if they go to a clinician and they say it a little differently, that might, click a switch and they'll go, oh, I understand it now. Or if the judge says you really need to go back and work on this, then maybe your next conversation with your client, they might believe you a little bit more.
Yeah, sometimes that's exactly it. I mean, if you're saying one thing and they're thinking another, obviously there's a breakdown in the communication a little bit. And
right.
And so, yeah, for sure, a judge can reinforce, what you're saying, or maybe the client is just okay with not doing that well at a higher level. I mean, you can talk about having your own goals for each student and each person and each combination, but like you said, if it's safe and they get a score that they're happy with at a higher level, then I think you got to be able to support the person in that decision. Now, if they come back really disappointed and, it really didn't work for them, then again, like the conversation has has to happen again or happen in a different way, or you take it to the lesson and you say, we can improve this, but it's not going to be this humongous jump to the next show in 3 weeks. Like, you're not all of a sudden going to score all that much better. You have to say, are you happy with this score? If not, what are our options? What can we do?
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. The good thing is typically in dressage, you're going to be, if you're ready to show and you're able to show and you will just come back with a bad score. I will have a student, maybe they decide to go up a level or I can't go or something and they come back and they're disappointed. And then we have to talk a little bit about expectations. It happens to me more in the eventing world. Where, because I do coach a bunch of eventers and that's where we get into trouble when they need to move up. And in that particular case, I'll actually talk to their jumping coach because they have a little more of a ability to change that. But at the end of the day, I think the judges
not ready to move up there. That could be dangerous with the jumping.
Exactly. But I think in dressage,
sure.
that you're right, Nancy, the judges kind of sort them out a little bit.
Well, I had a situation with this sort of thing with a rider that didn't necessarily want to stay at the same level, but the rider also wasn't super confident to show the next level. But what we did is, I did a little training on the horse, and she showed second level. So she showed first level a couple of years. The horse is moving up and progressing and doing better, but said, this year I don't feel confident about second level. What can we do? And we got a little creative, and she rode second level test 1 over a couple of days, and I showed the horse in test 2 and test 3. And I think that worked really well because, I had a plan for the horse. I was able to train it a little bit and give the horse a little bit of confidence, and the rider also a little bit of confidence at that level that we were working together, even at the show grounds a little bit, So I think there's different ways to do it, and I think you have to look for sometimes a little bit more of a creative solution, if the rider is feeling a little bit stuck at a level. There's a big jump between some of these levels for especially that first level to second level thing. Not everybody wants to show first level forever, and you got to do something about it.
I have an amateur lady that's showing third level on one of my school horses, and he's got quite a bouncy trot. And she has a lot of trouble sitting the trot, but all the collected trot and the canter and the walk work is all very good. And so for the extended trots, I just tell her, to be conservative and find the trot, a little bit bigger trot that she can sit, and just know that for that one score, it might only be a 5. And she can accept that low score on that one movement, and then she's getting 6s and 7s on everything else. So we just kind of look at her project as, she's in there doing third level like she's always wanted to. We know that the extensions in the trot aren't going to be so great, but we know it going in. So when the judge comes back and tells us, guess what, the trot extensions aren't so great, we already knew that, so we're prepared for that. So it's not a disappointing situation. And she's getting in there and doing that level, and from show to show, we keep working on her sitting trot at home, and it's getting better and better and better. So that's another one of those things where you have to talk about expectations.
Yeah, it goes back to communication, I think, again, and people not being disappointed with the outcome, and everybody knowing where you're at going in, and having fun and saying that was great. So, I think that's a great discussion.
She's gaining a lot of confidence by going out to the shows on this horse. So I wouldn't want to just stay home and train until her sitting trot was perfect, because then she's missing out on all this great show miles. So that's worked really well for her.
Well, Nancy, thank you very much. That was a great discussion. Can you tell us, how do we find you on the internet?
Excuse me, it's nancyhins.com.
Well, that was a great conversation with Nancy about showing or not showing and goals about showing. Right after this commercial with Equestrian Collections, we have a friend of mine and a trainer from Ottawa, Canada, Ron King. He runs Blueprint Farm up there, and we're going to talk about cold weather riding.
We've been speaking a whole lot in recent weeks about looking to Equestrian Collections for all of your fall and winter needs. They have all the top brands in winter wear for you and your horse. Well, in addition to winter, believe it or not, it is now November and time to start thinking about holiday gift giving. There's no better place to find those equestrian gift ideas than at Equestrian Collections. They have thousands of choices for all of your gift-giving needs at some fantastic prices. Whether it is for that guy, girl, or equine in your life, you will find it all at EquestrianCollections.com. Get that holiday shopping started early at EquestrianCollections.com.
Hi, Ron. Thanks for coming on the show.
Hi.
You're on today to talk a little bit about winter weather riding for you and me up in Canada. That's really important, and I'm sure a lot of people would like a few tips on how to make it pleasurable in the winter anyways.
Well, I think the most pleasurable thing is if you have the opportunity to move south for the winter. That's tip number one. Florida or California sounds really nice right about now.
That's what I'm talking about, Ron. That's what I'm talking about.
Oh, Reese, not everyone can just move south. So, okay, Ron, if you can't go south, what else can you do?
Well, if you can't go south, one thing you can do, I highly recommend dress in layers. And you can get some Under Armour gear, or sometimes it's actually a wool blend to put underneath your riding stuff that's not very thick, and so wicks away any perspiration and sweat. But the more layers, the better. So as you get warm, you can take them off, and then after you ride, you can put them back on.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect start. What else?
Well, often my hands get really cold, so I do have liners for my gloves, and I have fairly thick thin slate gloves. And then when it gets to very cold temperatures, often these hot pads I put in my hands as well to keep myself warm.
Yeah, I have a huge. I get them in bulk. Huge pot. I think they're charcoal activated things. Is this what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly. They're charcoal activated, and they last for about 8 hours in general.
Yeah, you can pack them in your boots. You can pack them in your gloves. They're thin enough nowadays. I know before they were really thick, but now you can get them in your boots and put them there. Anything else? What about for the horses?
Now, for the horses, I highly recommend to clip them. I find if they're really, really fuzzy, they get pretty warm and wet, and then it takes them hours to dry off. So the best thing is I like to clip my horses and then blanket them appropriately depending on the weather. Because up here, even though it can get very cold, it can also get, the weather can really vary often, and it's nice to blanket them appropriately.
And Ron, talk to us about, does it ever get too cold that you're uncomfortable with riding or really working?
It does. It does. My cutoff point is around minus 18 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's cold. It's really, really cold. And even at minus 18, it's really difficult to do a lot.
Sure. So what are your expectations on those days? Like what do you do? If it got to that temperature in Kentucky, I don't think we would leave the barn. But I mean, what do you do? I mean, we gets cold here in Kentucky, but it doesn't typically get that cold. And if it ever got, I don't know what minus 18 is, but, my cutoff is 20 degrees Fahrenheit, where I'm really I'm not sure that that's productive, or, just to take the rugs off, it gets quite cold. But what do you do on those days? What's your expectation?
Well, we often ride them with a quarter sheet on, and it probably doesn't come off. And you just try your best to supple them and move them around. It's really difficult to work them very hard on those days, especially even just as a rider, you feel the cold temperature in an indoor arena, and there's no wind, but it's still, you feel it against your face, and so you can't help but believe that the horse also struggles with that temperature. So you basically just move them around a little bit, even if it's 15, 20 minutes, and then they can go back in, especially if it's so cold outside. If it's even colder than that outdoors, their turnout is limited, so it's kind of important that they get out of the stall.
Yeah, I know that when these days get so cold, I just do a bit of walk work, even, 10, 15 minutes of walk, with a quarter sheet, or even sometimes kind of a cooler on to get a little bit more coverage. And you can do a lot of suppling work just at the walk without getting into trot or canter where the airways get a little bit too open for the cold weather, and it actually becomes a little bit dangerous and not good for the horses to be cantering around and huffing and puffing. So I think it's important to kind of do something, because horses need the exercise, especially the athletes.
So, Ron, we did the math, and minus 18 degrees Fahrenheit is actually 0 degrees Fahrenheit. I have to be honest. There's no way I'm going outside when it's that temperature. I will do base barn chores and that's it. So you guys are, hats off to you for going out there. But so how long, how many months does it stay minus 18, or is that unusual for you guys? How does that work?
It really depends on the year. Some years we may have minus 18 for 1 week, where the high may be around minus 18. So that's the height of the day. If it's a very prolonged time, obviously.
It's not like that for very long. Yeah, you might get a few days. Like for me, we might get a few days like that between, January, February. But generally it isn't that cold where I am anyways, very often.
So let me ask you guys a question. There's a lot of people that feel that horses should get a little bit of a break in the winter. That is a issue when you go south. The horses obviously don't get a break. Is that a time that you guys would suggest, maybe some hand walking and giving them a week or two off, or do you guys continue on from there?
When it gets very cold, they often do get somewhat of a break. When the temperatures reach, minus 20, minus 25, which is maybe a brief period of time, but then they for sure get those few days off. And you try, if it's too cold for them to go outside, then you try to even turn them out in the arena potentially.
Yeah, I mean, for me, January, February, bit of March, maybe even when it is like this, then I don't consider it that they're in kind of full training. You have to expect that they're going to get some time off here or there. So you kind of work when you can. And if they get a few days off or something like that, that's perfect because, I'm not necessarily wanting to be out in the barn that much. And this is the time that I take, vacation where maybe I'll go to Florida for a week or two or go somewhere just to have that time off because, all summer we're showing, we don't get any time off, into the fall, we're kind of doing a few other things. So, that's just a vacation time for me. I think it's perfect, and it's built into the year because of our show schedules and that. So
sure. I mean that I found that to be a difficult thing because when I was here, when I was growing up, I didn't actually have an indoor here in Kentucky, and we do actually need one because we get a lot of rain and cold rain typically. But going south, that is always a little bit of an issue that the horses sort of can go year round now. And I think every trainer, every rider has to think about that. So I actually give my horses a little time off during the holidays. Before we go to Florida, before we sort of get really going, I give them a few days off around the holidays, which is nice for me. But that's what I do going south. So, a lot of riders aren't, and I certainly don't go every year. So it's interesting to see. When I lived in Germany, the horses would have their mouths would, the foam that would come off their mouth would freeze. And I couldn't believe we were riding. I couldn't believe that was a good thing for their airways, but you guys would know more about that than I would.
Yeah, I think there is, again, depending on how cold it is, some danger to the airways. But the other fun thing you can do is ride outside in the snow. You wouldn't believe how the horses react to some of that snow. And if you just go out for a hack and use it, if the snow is a little bit deep, then they have to really pick up their legs and stuff. And it's just a fun time to ride. If it's not too cold and you got a couple of feet of snow on the ground, that's really good.
Yeah, Phil makes a really valid point that sometimes when it is nice and sunny out and there's nice clear snow, and you take your horses out and just hack them or just have a nice kind of ride, it's not a negative thing at all.
So what do you do when you go out? Do you put snowshoes on them?
Yeah, actually, kind of. The horses are shod, so they get a rubber underpad, and it prevents snowballs from kind of building up in the shoes. Do you use those, Ron, up there?
We do, yes. Yeah, we do. We also typically put borium on the shoes, just so that they have a little extra grip even for turnout. And then if it's quite icy, I know a few people who will even go as far as putting corks in, if they do a lot of work outside and it's potentially icy underneath the snow.
Yeah, I mean, mine are cork generally. That I can take the corks out or put a different cork in. But if it's icy out and I still like to get the horses out as much as I can, then it's nice, for a little extra grip and So they get the snow pads, they get their corks, they're all tractioned up. I think that's good.
Can you hear what a cork is?
Cork.
Well, a cork. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, go ahead, Ron.
I was just going to say there's different types of corks, but you screw them actually into the shoe itself for extra traction, and then you can take them out afterwards.
Yeah, because
often jumpers use them if they jump on grass.
Yeah, I've seen them with event horses, but typically here we don't use them on dressage horses, so that's why. And when do you put those in? When do you ask the farrier to start putting those in?
I have the corks I guess they're also called studs sometimes. Different people have different terms, but it's a little screw-in piece, and it's on the bottom of the shoe. I mean, I have them in year-round that I can use them if I want, and if not, you take them out, and there's no negative effect to have that in the shoe.
Yeah, we don't typically, like I said, my event horses get those, but my dressage horses, we don't get that much snow for them to turn out on, so we don't do that. I have, when it gets really icy, we put a little bit of Vaseline in the horses' feet when they go outside, because we don't typically put snowshoes on them or pads. So we'll put a little Vaseline on them when they go outside. That's something that we do here if it's really, really icy. But guys, we don't turn out if it's really icy. I hate to tell you, it's the difference in management. I have a little area, a little playpen area that we'll turn out in, but we'll salt it and get it cleaned up before the horses go outside. So it's just different, but we don't get the kind of snow in the long period of time that you guys get it.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that we use a little bit, cold weather stuff is a bit warmer, because if you're pulling the bit out in the barn, I mean, the bits are quite cold to put in the horse's mouth, so we have a little thing, and you can put it in the microwave, or you just run the bits under a little bit of warm water before you throw them in the mouth. That's another important point to kind of the cold weather riding. Well, I think that was a great segment. Thank you, Ron, for coming on and discussing that with us.
Oh, thank you.
And if people are looking on the internet, where can they find you?
They can find me at Blueprint Farm at gmail.com.
And Facebook?
And on Facebook as well, under my name, Ron King.
So you guys were away over the weekend together, I know, because I got pictures of you together. We're going to post some of the ones that we can on our Facebook page. But what was it for, and what'd you learn?
So we actually went to Hassler Dressage at River's Edge in Chesapeake City, Maryland. And it's actually where Philip and I met. Now, 7 years ago, Philip? 8 years ago?
I think it's 8 years ago. Yeah, 8 years ago, we started in this symposium run by Harmony Sport Horses, sponsored by Harmony Sport Horses, with Scott Hassler. And there we learned all about everything to do with riding young horses, from starting them to showing them to getting them ready for the FEI young horse classes and giving them a great start to their career in dressage. So that's super educational and a really fun weekend.
Yeah, it is. It's great, and it's also at the time it's all professional riders that go, all professional young horse riders. And what's good about it is it's very rare that we actually all get to sit in a room for 3 days together and really network and talk and really work through problems. We saw some really, really interesting horses and some phenomenal international horses. I would say we had a group of 2-3-year-olds that we got to see over the 3 days. And I really enjoyed that. That's where I always feel that I need more education. I'm getting better the more that I do with that young horse. Normally I get them when they're 4 or older. But it's so important to get that kind of basic work on them. So I came home and Ali, actually, I changed some things up with him, with his program. And actually, we talked a lot about working with side reins with young horses. And again, this is in an appropriate way, but kind of there was a young horse who was having trouble with connection. And the trainer hadn't been, for example, she hadn't really used side reins. And so the horse really didn't understand what was being asked of him. So Ingo Papa, we fit him in properly fitting tack and properly fitting side reins, and you could see the horse really sort of develop his own understanding for the connection. So that was fun for me. I really enjoyed that group. There was also a 3-year-old that was having trouble bending to one side. I was having that problem too with my young horse, so that was fun to get some other insights on that. So I enjoyed the 3-year-olds, and it has helped me in my own program this week. How about you, Philip?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. The young horses are great, and it's so funny how they're so unique and they're different, and you have to apply a little bit different rules for each horse, or a different emphasis maybe is a different way to look at it. But I mean, for me, I've started quite a few young horses. I did that over in Europe for a little while as well. So I kind of like the older horses. Where are they going? What's important? Once they can go around in a nice frame and in good rhythm, kind of where do you go from there, and how do you continue to develop the horses to the FEI levels and really show them off to the best ability. So we saw a lot of great stuff with that, really emphasizing, rhythm. That's so important, rhythm, not speeding the horses up too fast and just letting them settle in their work and get nice and relaxed. And I mean, it was so much great stuff to see. All different groups of ages of horses, from the 3-year-olds to the 4-year-olds, another group of 5-year-olds, and a group of 6-year-olds. So it's really, you can connect each age group, from one to the next, and see how the horses develop. And even though they are individuals, there's certain goals to try and achieve, and just learning so much. There's just so much to know. So I mean, this is why it's the 8th year of us going and seeing this, because every year we learn something new, or see a horse that's a little bit different, and can take it home and apply it for our students, for our horses, for everybody we come in contact. For the show here, we have some great ideas for upcoming shows. So I think it's awesome. It was really fun. Really fun.
It was really fun. It was really a great time. And no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I don't think you can never stop learning. And for me, when we started going to this young horse conference, I had no idea what to do with young horse. I mean, if you handed me a 3-year-old, I would have been like, oh my God, what is that? No, really. I mean, because I was much more confident with the FEI horses. That's what I was riding. That's what I rode in Europe. That's what I'm training. So for me, this has been really a huge part of my development as a rider and a trainer, and how to work with that age group. And it's interesting to see. We have had mostly German instructors that come, and Europe has a much more defined system than we do here in the United States. And I think we're improving. In Canada, I can't say so much about Canada, but for sure the United States. And so to start getting to have a group and a resource that you can send your horses to, that sort of understand, what are the requirements of what can a 3-year-old actually do, or what can a 4-year-old actually do,
or what's too much and what's not enough.
Right.
And there's always those questions.
So it's like Extreme Mustang Makeover. It's like Extreme Dressage Makeover.
I don't really know. Yeah, I don't know what the Mustang Makeover is.
It's where they train the Mustangs they get 3 months to train a Mustang and then bring them into a show. So,
oh, right. I was thinking the car.
You were thinking the car?
I was losing it, like Extreme Mustang doing it.
It's Philip's time of night, everybody.
That's
where we start to lose Philip.
We're losing Philip. It's been a long
you guys
day.
realize it's a week away from Thanksgiving here in the United States.
Yeah, we already did ours, guys. You're way behind.
Well, I'm already working out in anticipation of next week. I thought I better start early.
Now, do you do a big family thing, Reese, or do you guys just kind of hang around?
Not too crazy big. Typically, Thanksgiving has always been a day that it's, I sort of let everybody go home kind of thing. I do actually have help this year, so that'll be fun. So typically we kind of lay low and we go to my mom's house for Thanksgiving dinner, and I'm in charge of desserts, so I make a mean pumpkin pie, I will tell you. So I'm in charge of desserts, and there's always, my brother-in-law doesn't like pumpkin pie, so I always try to think of something fun for him that he'll eat. So he has a special dessert. So, but no, it's a really good week, really relaxing. So.
And I want to remind everybody that we will have a show next week. It'll come out on Friday. For those of you that aren't shopping, there will be a dressage show on Friday. And the Stable Scoop show this week at stablescoop.com. Every year, now this is our 4th year, believe it or not, we do an Equestrian Collections gift buyer's guide, where we pick a bunch of products and we do a whole show about the products that we recommend. And you'll hear which one is. Everybody had everybody on the show, Helena and I and Debbie from Equestrian Collections, we all had our favorite product, and it was the same one. So I think it's going to be the top.
I want to know next week.
It's going to be the top seller this year. You're going to have to listen to Stable Scoop. It's going to be the top seller this year, I think, across the board. So you'll have to listen in and see. And that show is out now, so you can take a listen to that.
Oh, cool. Oh, I will definitely.
Well, that's it.
You guys,
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Show. Yeah, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, have a good week.
And and Philip and you guys, you've already had it, so no fun for you.
Yeah, it's a normal week this week.
Suffer through your Thursday.
Yeah, you can have a Thursday without us. I know you're going to miss us. But you can find our show notes. You can find our show notes and links to today's guests on our website at dressageradio.com. You can like us on Facebook, search for Dressage Radio Show. Follow us on Twitter at Horse Radio. My website is maplecrestfarmky.com, and my email is reese@horseradionetwork.com.
You can find me at philipparksequestrian.com, and my email is philip@horseradionetwork.com. And I'd like to thank our sponsor, Equestrian Collections. And don't forget to check out all the other shows on the Horse Radio Network at horseradionetwork.com.
Everybody, keep your heels down and your shoulders back, and have a great Thanksgiving.